Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, I'm homesick today. Don't get the violins out because this video is not about that. But I haven't been feeling really great all week. And you ever have one of those illnesses coming on where you think to yourself, I'm getting sick, it's coming, and every day it just kind of teeter-totters. And so I'm still not sure what the heck this is, but I just don't feel awesome. But anyhow, this video doesn't have anything to do with that now, does it? I was introduced to the concept some time ago, 6.5 years ago or so, of compound ignorance. When you don't know that you don't know. And that's a sorry state of affairs to be in, I tell you. But it does have its perks and its advantages. When I made that video a little while ago talking about like everybody lies and about rumor tables, I wondered to myself, are people going to bring up this subject? And I decided I'd leave it alone. And sure enough, they did. Some people brought up in the comments, and I think in some other responses to that video on a Facebook group, a certain level of disappointment they have sometimes when they as a player, know that their character doesn't know something, when they know that they failed. And so it's a subject I've talked about in the past, but I wanted to kind of revisit this, especially because I have a lot of friends that have different perspectives on this. And it's kind of interesting to see where these perspectives come from. So there's a certain amount of talking about preference and bias in this video, but it's important to realize that there's no wrong or right answer. Sometimes there is for a particular game. But it's just kind of like my observations and my experience and history, because after all, it's my channel. So, sit down, get comfortable, let's go for the ride and have some Diet Coke. Yummy. So anyhow, when I started playing role-playing games, very often as kids, because we started relatively young, we would make these rolls for like, detect secret doors, okay, you know, and you roll a 5, okay, well I don't detect a secret door. Or try to hide in shadows, or all these kind of things. We'd roll for ourselves. And I think we ignored the advice in some of the books at first, which said, well, the game master should roll for these things. And at some point, you know, we had these aha moments. You know, hey, wait a minute. You know, why is Jimmy making that roll for his character Gork? If Gork misses a secret door, how the heck would Jimmy know? These moments where all of a sudden we're equating player knowledge and character knowledge, because part of what happens in many games is there's this divide between what the player knows and what the character knows. And while often that's very satisfying, sometimes that can be unsatisfying. And you think about it, in role-playing games, there's multiple points of view that you can come from. You can come from the point of view of the game master, where you may know a lot about the world. You may come from the point of view as a player, where I know about my character, but then I know about what's going on with my character in the world. You're kind of hovering over the character, if you will. You may have knowledge that the character doesn't know. Say, in the examples I gave in that other video, where you roll your knowledge or your investigation check or something, and okay, you know that you failed, or you know that only 75% of the information that your character is going to get is correct. You know, so you know things that the character manifestly would not know. That's a different point of view. You can have the point of view as the character themselves, where it's, you know, quite obvious. If I'm Ivan, if I'm a character in a role-playing game, you know, and if I fail something, if I fail to put the pieces together, well, I don't know that. You know, maybe the guy that's playing me knows that, but that'd be interesting. But you get the idea. You have this experience or point of view simply as the character themselves. You can also have the point of view like the writer's room point of view, where you're all kicking around the idea, what would be cool here? And so the game master and the players are all having this discussion amongst each other. And I suppose there's other points of view, but those are some of the really big ones. But there is a certain joy to be had from keeping secrets from each other. Now, very often this can be in the GM's chair, where there's things going on in the world that the players and their characters have not discovered yet. And while it can be fun to have those secrets, keep those secrets from the characters, very often it can be really cool or fun or helpful to keep those secrets from the players. I think very often of something that Anthony, that Runeslinger, has said about playing games like Call of Cthulhu or horror-type games, where he talks about the idea that, you know, game masters don't scare the players scare themselves. And very often, what scares you as a player is the things that you don't know. The things that you're thinking about in your head, the connections you're starting to make, which may or may not be true. And that very often can be very, very powerful. But that requires keeping secrets from the players, not just from the characters. Very often we keep secrets from each other as players. You know, player to player. There may be motivations or things that your character has done that you're simply not telling the other players. It can be you're keeping these secrets from the game master because you have some big plan to thwart his big bad guy or whatever's going on. You get the idea. We can keep all kinds of secrets from each other. Sometimes, and this is bias and preference thing, we like to talk to each other about these things, and we kind of have that out-of-character discussion at the diner or in the discussion thread, or however we actually talk to each other in between the games, where we're talking about what's going to happen here, and that's a little bit writer's room or just commentary on what's going on in the game. Other times, we're keeping our cards close to our vest, where we don't want to show the other person what we're up to, and that can be fun. So there is there's a certain amount of joy in not knowing and in being the character, and this varies from person to person. Like I said, this is going to be laced with bias and preference, and I already kind of know some of my friends are going to say, "Oh, I like this," or "I don't like this." That's fine. That's part of what makes this hobby so great, is it's diverse. But there's that certain joy of not knowing and being the character, and where the point of view or the knowledge that you have, the player knowledge, or that divide between player knowledge and character knowledge, when that divide is eliminated and you both know the same thing, there's a certain amount of fun and joy that can be had in that. I certainly like it. It's not every single time, but there's that neat experience of discovery, both as a player and the character at the same time. And for me, sometimes it makes it easier for me to slip into the experience of being the character. I've talked about years ago, there were times that players and game masters have kept secrets from me when I simply wasn't at a session or whatever, my character wasn't there, and things that were revealed to me maybe sometimes months in real time later, and I was like, wow, that was really kind of cool to find it out then. Different strokes for different folks, but that can be really, really compelling. That idea that you are compoundly ignorant because you don't know. I think of some examples there are in, I think some of the games by Gray Malkin games. And I think the example is in Broken Rooms. It might be in Desolation, where, once again, you see this divide between player knowledge and character knowledge, where they are rolling something like stealth, and a character rolls particularly badly, and the character thinks that he's being very stealthy, but the player knows, because the game master is kind of humorously narrating the idea that his rear end is sticking above this grass as he's kind of crawling on his hands and knees. But the player thinks he's being stealthy, which brings up, of course, why not? Why wouldn't you want to have this compound ignorance? Why would you want to know as a player when you failed or didn't fail? Why would you want these roles to be in the open and not handled by your game master? And there's a few of them that I can think of, and I'm sure there's more. But the first one is the one that, to me, is the most troubling, the one that I was really surprised by when I re-entered the hobby, years ago now, and was really just puzzled by. And this would be the lack of trust. The lack of trust on the part of a player that, I want to see this roll out in the open if my game master is going to roll my stealth for me. Or why do I want to roll my own stealth or my own investigation? Or whatever. One of those things that the character manifestly would not know if they failed at, because these are the kind of roles we're talking about. And the lack of trust that you think that, well, the game master is going to fudge or cheat. Yet you want to have some kind of transparency. Or the game master might have some sort of bias for you or against you. And so I want to see these roles because I don't trust the game master to handle this and to be honest. And to me at that point, and this is just Ivan's perspective, I said it years ago, if you have an adversarial relationship with the people that you're gaming with or you don't trust them, why are you there? Don't game with those people. And I understand some people have had some experiences in the past which makes it very difficult for them to trust others now. But that's one of those reasons that to me is the most troubling. And once again, this is my own bias and preference rearing its ugly head. However, what about some other reasons that you would not want to have this divide or see these die rolls, to be aware of what your character doesn't know? And sometimes one of the most powerful ones is the desire to role-play ignorance or self-deception. The fun that comes from playing a character who doesn't know that he doesn't know something, but you know it. And that can be an awful lot of fun. So I understand that one. I'm not saying this one is better than the first, but that can be a lot of fun. But that requires a certain mindset. And I've had fun in a lot of games doing just that, role-playing the complete ignorance of this character, that he didn't realize he just missed something. And the other one, which I can understand, and this is the final one that I can think of, although, like I said, I'm sure there's more, is, and I can see this in some of my friends especially, is the desire to engage with and see the mechanics in play, to know when you've failed, to know when your character has missed something. In essence, to play the game, to have it all laid bare in front of you, where you see all the mechanics, you see all the moving parts, and you're free to engage with them as a player. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure there's other reasons that you would want to have everything be transparent and see these things and not be compoundly ignorant. And if there are some more, I'd like to hear about it, because I'd be really quite interested. So this is, this is not meant to be a contentious video. It's just something that kind of, once again, the topic kind of showed up, and I figured I'd talk about it, or at least talk about where my perspectives are now. To me, there's a certain joy in that ignorance that can be sometimes ruined, even sometimes just by, having a bunch of players or characters, all with different abilities of perception, and the game master has to tell each one what they just saw, and I'm like, oh man, I really would rather not know that my characters missed this. But I can also understand and I enjoy those times when I get to role play the ignorance of my character. So I can see both ways. But I'd like to hear your take and your experience with this, because it's an interesting topic.